I want to do a segment I call 35 mile an hour rant. This kills time on long drives and helps me fill in time when I take a day off for a change, which I'm allowed to do. Today I actually want to talk about Isaac Asimov because, I've read a lot of his books here in the car, a huge fan, love his work. Alright. First off, Asimov laid down what is arguably the foundation of what we know as modern sci-fi. He's one of the people to do so, especially in dealing with robots, automatons, etc. First off, his work is very cold and calculated. There's not as much emotion to go through it. There is, the dialogue's still on the flat side, but it's still absolutely worth it. First off, robotics. Asimov proposed the 3 laws of robotics that make robots allowed to work with humans. If you read his books, you are going to hear this a bunch of times. Law 1. A robot may not harm a human or through an action allow a human to come to harm. That means if a human is in danger, it must risk its life to save the human. Law 2. A robot must obey any order given to him by a human unless it contradicts the first law. So if a human puts a gun to his head and says, "Don't save me," the robot's going to have to break it. Law 3. A robot may act to preserve its own self-interest and continued existence unless this contradicts the first 2 laws. So, self-preservation, basically. The Will Smith movie I, Robot captured those 3 laws and virtually nothing else about the book. When I read I, Robot, I was very amused to find it was a series of short stories that were mainly puzzles. The robots are malfunctioning somehow because of a command they were given or because of how they were programmed. So let's go in there and figure out what the problem is and how to solve it. These were very interesting. Oh yeah, Dr. Calvin's was in there too, but she was an older woman who, was a scientist and not Hero's girlfriend. I was fine with the movie until I read the book, and now I'm just like, what did you people do? Asimov's work comes in 3 time periods: Robots, Empire, and Foundation. Same universe, but thousands upon thousands of years apart. The first Foundation novel I recommend very highly. If you're going to read one thing by Isaac Asimov, read that. The idea being that there is a way to predict the future in terms of social change. You're going to have this much time period, then a revolution's going to happen, or someone's going to come in, events, and there's a person who can plan these things. So he creates a world on the outskirts of the galaxy where everything is so isolated that he can predict things accurately. And says, in 1,000 years, this Foundation is going to take over the galaxy. And it's going pretty well so far. Just for example, what really amused me, I mentioned being in Warhammer Hell right now. I love the idea of tech priests, the idea that, machinery is so complicated, it has a spirit that has to be awoken, and that priests somehow combine religion and machinery to do maintenance on these machines. When I was in an Only War game, I played a tech priest. I was like, oh, this is such a cool concept. Warhammer is so great to have admitted it. No, it was Asimov. Asimov invented the idea of tech priests, to my knowledge. The fact that there would come a time when people were so hyper-specialized in their fields, they didn't understand how basic technology works. So they lost atomic power. Keep in mind, not nuclear, atomic, because this is a really old novel. And the Foundation created an order of machine priests who could pray to their spaceships and make them work. And they made a superstition out of science. And it was honestly brilliant. And later on in the Foundation, we get psychics. And he has a very reasonable way of dealing with psychics. I mean, you see them in all portrayed all different ways all throughout science fiction. Some of them, telekinesis, basically gods, like think Phoenix Saga, think Death Icon on Children for those anime geeks out there. Or you think of like unlimited mind reading, hear all the voices. His is more low-key, and it's actually very reasonable, I think. But my problem with his later work is it becomes a question of, like, okay, here's a bunch of stuff that happens. Now, throughout that adventure, who is the human, who is the robot, and who is the psyker? And at the end, they find it out. It's like, oh, hey, you were actually a robot. Oh, hey, I was actually psychic. Seriously, Foundation. If you must read one, Foundation. Caves of Steel is also very interesting. It's the start of the robot series, which is basically like how humans would live in a world of robots. Also, Aurorans are jerks. Just throw that out there. There is no time or universe where the people of planet Aurora are not jerks. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy these in audiobook form. So, want something to check out, want some old school, want to like learn where science fiction came from, go for it. This has been a 35 mile an hour rant.